I just have a feeling that the people I really need to talk to today are not gonna be here. Oh, well.
I feel like we already went over this, but were we about to wear like leggings and stuff when we worked?
Is he up to what?
Are we like able to wear leggings and stuff, or is it just like the ripped jeans?
I think you can wear leggings. I mean, she's gonna send you a thing with all the policies, and they are posted on Workspace under, in the left-hand column under field placement. I think the main thing is that don't wear the leggings that look like tights, that are like, look like you should have a skirt on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's like a thick, like almost a pant, yeah. She has some weird rules I don't totally get down with, like don't wear a sweatsuit, you can wear a sweatshirt, but not all of it at one time, you know, I don't understand. But I'm not gonna. And then she had things about holes in your pants, but she's also even changed that to be not big holes in your pants. I mean, honestly, that needed to change, because do you see what people are selling? You can almost not buy jeans that don't. Especially if you're buying like in the junior size or whatever.
I'm just curious because I do have like work attire for my last job, so I have like all the non-ripped jeans and stuff.
I mean, sometimes work attire is a lot just because they're gonna be painting, you know, you can feel it out.
Yeah.
It's good to look nice, but you don't have to look. Like, did you work today? You can totally wear what Cass said on. It's more about, do you feel like you can get down on the floor with the kids? Can you go outside and not be cold? Like, you should have a coat, because if the kids have to wear a coat, you should have a coat, you know, stuff like that. But she does have a couple of things, like the heels are a problem. It's hard to watch kids and run around after them in heels.
But I'm tall enough, so I don't need heels.
Yeah. But even Casey, like Casey's okay with kids. It's the teachers that are okay with it. Yeah, she's like, if you gotta run after a kid, just take your shoes off. And I'm like, or you might twist your ankle. Maybe you should, whatever. Everybody's got a different way they look at it. If it doesn't impinge on how you interact with the kids, it's totally fine. All right, it is that time again. So. Do you want to add this to this? All right. I hope everybody's doing well and not having the plague. We have a lot of people that are behind on some things. And we have actually a lot of people have done a lot of work and it's been great. So we have to start, you know, we can't wait for people to catch up. You're either gonna do it or not. And hopefully you'll do it before the thing closes. Make sure you talk to me if there's a specific thing you want me to help you with. The thing I'm most concerned at right now in terms of my role is with the placements. Word that in a way that doesn't cause World War III, right? And we also learned how easy it is to make mistakes like that, because we're just human living, and it's hard to be human these days. So, anybody got questions? There are a bunch of you, and Jahara, I just have to do yours, because somehow last night I was going through stuff, and I realized you were the last one that I did not follow through, but everybody else should have Teams messages to arrange your time. So make sure you get back to Casey if you were waiting for that. That did happen. Most of you that I know sort of when some people haven't started, but some of you did start. So I would be, like, I know you just started this week, right? So you should turn one in at the end of the week. I am going in and putting zeros. If I know you've been going for a couple weeks, I have to go back in and check dates based on that thread with Casey. Just so that it's accurate, because I wasn't feeling good and the wedding and yada yada, but now I need to see where we are and see how far we can go. So I gotta follow through on that, and I'm gonna put those zeros as placeholders, and they need to be done. They just need to be. And they should be prioritized. It could even be that 10 minutes before your last part of the day happens of the week, you could fill it out and show it to them. It really could. Now, I'm also thinking they're gonna fill out a similar thing with just the chart. So I'm also okay with it if you just turn them in. And don't worry about getting it signed, okay? I just want them in. And if I don't get, everybody's in that has already been doing it for a couple of weeks now, then I'm gonna have to think about if we need to, okay, you can't go in again until I get them. But I'm not gonna do that yet. So just please don't make me do that. Because it's also a lot of work for me. And Casey's gonna be so annoyed because she's gonna have to reschedule all those hours. Don't do that. All right.
Casey will fight.
What?
Casey will fight.
Let's not do that to Casey. Let's not do that to me. All right. Now, on a better note, I've heard some really good things. I have heard a lot of good things. I've heard people getting down on the floor and talking to the children and showing up on time, doing good stuff. So let's make us, our program, look good, and let's help support the Child Care Center. Tomorrow, I'm gonna be in the center at 10:30 for a high school group that's coming in. I was going to give them a tour, but then Casey was like, I'm gonna give a break, have someone else do something, and then I'll do the tour. So I'm gonna get a little training, because it has been since before the pandemic, since I've gone on a tour with Casey. And then some open house, I have to give like 3 tours, because Casey has to man a table at our open house. So you may see me tomorrow morning, if you are doing any of your time tomorrow morning. I think that Heidi or Alana is gonna fill out the assessment things, and then I think Casey's gonna scan them for me. I think we decided to have them go to me, because we didn't wanna then wait for you guys to turn the bag. Okay, so we may be touching base next week. I might do it individually depending on if there's anything that I think we need to talk about individually, but otherwise, I would like to hear about anything, if you had a really interesting interaction or something you think you're definitely gonna write about or something you were wondering about, I would love to hear about that. Does anybody have any examples? All right, hopefully that took some of the mystery out of it. Okay. I brought some extra forms in case, it's a barrier, like you think I'm gonna get it printed and then you don't get them printed. Totally get that too. And I also brought something for observation sometimes I use. That's a 2-column observation, just in case that makes things easier for people. But if you're not here, you're not gonna get them. So who would like some printed weekly reflections? Anybody? You're typing yours, right? There's 4. And then, Faith, do you think you're gonna type them or?
I already have a printer, so if
Okay.
I'm confused.
You just printed them or do you want them? Nova, when are you starting, did they say?
Supposedly.
So I'll just give you a couple? Or are you gonna edit it? Okay. I don't, but I could bring them. When is your first day?
I know I ended out Tuesday. So from just like my next official day, I'm going into like meeting there today.
Oh, I'll bring them to class on Tuesday.
Okay. It's from 3 to 5, so.
Oh,
I have to
that's
go
fine.
right after this.
All right, perfect. Then you can take the science fair with you.
Okay.
All right. So this other thing, I just wanted to show you this running record. This is sometimes nice for, if you want to use it for your observation. You write on the left-hand side what you were observing, and then on the right-hand side, you can write if you saw someone like scaffolding stuff, or wow, that was just like John Dewey, or why'd they do that? You know, those kinds of things. This is what I'm talking about. Do you want these, or do you want to wait until you? I'm gonna give you 4. It's supposed to be 4. She might need these, but. Some of you are doing your hours elsewhere, so I might not speak specifically to that, but they should still fill the form out. The form is available if you go in content and you go in the left-hand column where there's a bunch of like titles on the side, there's a place called field placement. I didn't assign the first one, but I didn't put them in the weekly content, but I probably could put the first one in, and then those who haven't done it will be able to find it. It's hard because everybody does it at a different time, and when some people get really upset when they see something, but they can't do it. It's just like, they can't check the box off. So the other thing I'm showing, I don't have it uploaded yet. I can upload it. It's just a 2-column observation form, and it's like, I'll put it in there. It might be in the left-hand column. Let me see. So I can show you guys so you're not wondering what the heck we're talking about. Let me see. Window contents. Share. Share. All right, so week 8. I put less in week 8. I know you're not gonna feel like that, but I did. Because I didn't open anything up because I was sick Tuesday, so I did take a bunch of stuff out. I know you probably don't think it looks like it, but I did. All right, so anyway, the thing I'm talking about is over on the column. I should probably change this to a student view because I don't know. Let me see if I do that. Let me know if it doesn't. No. Okay, now it's in a student view. Because sometimes I'm telling you stuff, that's how it looks for me. And then you're like, what are you talking about? All right, so what I'm talking about is if you go on this left-hand column, right here, field placement information, I know it's low. And then if you go in here, then you're gonna see forms replacement. I can probably move these down because most of you have done them now. And then if you look at weekly documentation of hours, I have the first week and the second week open. I probably should just start opening them all because some of you are in your 3rd week or so. But how many weeks have you gone? Is it 2 or 3?
4.
Okay, so I'm gonna need to open those up. And some people are gonna have like 4 weeks, some people are gonna have, it all depends how many hours a week you're doing or if you are absent, you know? It's gonna go on, but don't forget that we have a whole nother grouping of students that need to do their hours, so every time you're absent, it impacts other students, which is why Casey was like, please don't do that. So this one. Anyway, that's where you would find these. Does anyone really think I need to put it in like week 8? Is like, where are you guys getting your information when you get your assignments for the class? Because when I put this in week 8, everybody's at a different place. Like Faith is just starting her first week next week. Nova's starting first week next week. Some of you are on your 4th week. Some are on a couple, depending on sicknesses or other things. So do we want, can we just go to that left-hand column? Does that seem okay? All right. What I am doing is, as I know, I'm gonna have to be more methodical, as I know that people need to be doing it, I was kind of leaving it loosey-goosey. I'm gonna put the 0 in if I know you started and that you should have done it, right? When I went through to put zeros in today, I tried to keep track of who I know hadn't started yet or whatever, just so that it wasn't, I don't wanna freak people out, but I want them to notice, and it needs to get done before we have to move to something more drastic. So these are also where you wanna look at for your project directions, your hour documentation, your self-reflection, and then the running record. This is actually what I just handed out in class. And this is just an easy way to, did you get one of these? Yes. Right. So it's really what we talked about, but sometimes it's easier for people if they have the form, they have the sheet, and you write your name here, you'd write what time you started, the date, and then you would write on the left-hand column exactly what you saw. So if it was Cassandra's thing that she wrote about, you could write about pretty much what she wrote was exactly what happened, right? And then what could we put as comments on the right-hand side? Like you kind of talked about maybe talking about sharing. They were working on sharing. They were working on working together. Like if someone couldn't find worms, helping the other person. So empathy a little bit. Anything else? I mean, it's as simple as that. Sometimes there's going to be more stuff, and there might have been more stuff. I can't remember what was on the form beyond that. You could also, like, if one of the children, you know how sometimes everyone's okay except that one child who's like, oh, I just want to work, but they won't help me. So you could write, you know, maybe next time I can try to help them or help someone else help them, you know, help facilitate them getting help from another student or something. How did worms become such a thing with kids? Like, what is that, you know? And then what do they do? Did they put them back in the dirt after they found them?
I think most of them kind of squished them and then.
Now, see, I don't know how I feel about that.
See, when I was there, they were tossing them back in the bush. And when you come in, it's when I leave.
The mass decimation of worms.
Happens right after.
We don't want to talk about that part, huh? I'm just joking, but.
The worm genocide.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not have a lesson on genocide.
Yeah.
They can do that in all of my other classes. All right, so that's all it is. Usually, if you have 5 minutes you write about, I know the form might say 10, it used to say 20. This is gonna be a book. And I mean, no one, your hand's gonna cramp up and you're not gonna be able to write everything that happened. Usually, if you can get a really good interaction, it'll end organically, you'll know where to end it, and you know, you don't need to do 10 minutes. Do what makes sense. Yeah.
So this needs to be kind of like all in one, like situation, is it? Running record or no?
Running record, you can use this for those 3 observations you have to do of children. This is a nice form to use for it, but if you didn't use this form, I wouldn't. Sometimes people just do better if they see it, right? If they can see the example. It's like easy for me to talk about, but if they don't see it visually, they're not gonna understand it. Maybe what I'll do is with some of the, now that I know some of you will turn them in this weekend, I can take some of the interactions you wrote and we can use those as examples to figure out how we would put them on here. And that'll be great because it'll just give some, you know, it'll be more tangible. It's easy for me to be like, you know, write it all down on the left and then on the right. You may also, like, you don't want to write about worms every observation. You know, sometimes it might be good to get a different part of the day or family luncheon or, you know, different stuff that's going on. But what I'll do is the things that get turned in this weekend with the interactions, we'll see if we can't do any of those. What we will do next week as well is take a video. I have a toddler video and an infant video, and we can watch the video and do it. There's one toddler, I might see if I can find a better one. There's this one, and it feels like your brain's exploding when you watch this. Like, how do you even stuff down? It's better if you focus on one kid and not just when everything's pure chaos. 1 or 2 kids, you know. All right, well, this will become more clear next week, because we will specifically take what you're observing in the rooms and see if we can apply it to that. And then we'll also take a couple video observations as examples. So Trista, a lot of the times, I know you're working full-time, right? Aren't you working full-time? So I usually tell people that are already working in the field that it's easier to learn from everything if you just divide it up over like 4 weeks and not, I know some of you are working full-time and could be like, I did them all this week. But then you can't apply all the stuff we're doing in the class. So I often tell people, well, I would really appreciate it if you spread it out, like, and just not list all your hours in 1 week so that you can actually, because you're not gonna, it's just better. Anyway, so. Anybody have questions? I gave you some because even though you're doing it at your own place you work, you should do the forms, the weekly reflection forms. Obviously, your person's not filling out the thing, but we could have it. All right, so some of you that have just slightly different, some people are already teaching, some people are already working somewhere else, and so they're gonna do it a little differently, but they're gonna meet all the things that they need to meet to have a valid experience for the classroom. All right, people are very quiet. That's perfect, thank you, Trista, that sounds great. All right, so one of the things I did bring, but I didn't bring everything that I brought, did I? Is I brought a couple things about infants and toddlers and literacy. But I also did bring I don't know. I haven't looked at the grade book to see how far behind you are. I know I was grading, well, I did a lot of children in the arts, and then I was starting to organize myself for grading the theorists. So we started with Piaget, and we've done Vygotsky. We started John Dewey, and I have not looked at where that is. Where is that? Why don't people tell me where they're at with John Dewey? Because I did open up Maria Montessori this week, so if people don't speak up.
Just like what we've done so far with it.
Yeah, where are you at with it?
I just did the content. I haven't been to things yet.
For the Dewey?
Yeah.
I think Dewey was due tonight, right? Something like that. All right, so remember with Dewey that you have to do the 5 questions. It's as boring and that. Because that's what I'm gonna look for is, did you find the 5 questions? Did you use the 5 questions for each scenario and find the answer? Boom, do that, you're good. I am finding, as I did DAP and some of the textbook work, people are gonna get better grades if you take the questions, copy and paste them into a document. I don't care if it's a Google Doc, a Word doc, or whatever doc, and then put the answers right under the question. Because and then you really need, it does say to write incomplete sentences. Because sometimes you just put what you think the answer is, but I can't tell if you understand it because you're just listing it. And if it says describe, you've got to describe. That means you need to do more than list. And so I would copy and paste the thing, which is what I've been doing when I grade them, because it's impossible to grade things that are incomplete sentences unless I'm looking at the question. And then when I look at the question, I'm like, that didn't happen. And then what's happening is usually I'm sending a link if you need to redo it. Or revise it, not redo it. And if that happens, I'm sending it, what it is I'm putting a grade in, and then I'm putting a link to a Google Doc in my feedback. And what I'm thinking is the easiest thing is if you just go to that Google Doc and you fix what I said wasn't there. Because it's very explicit. I've gone through every single thing and I've said, oh, you need this, you need this, you need this, or I've highlighted it. And if you do those things, the rubric was at the top where the question has exactly how many points each question is worth. And really where people are losing the points. And I'm thinking more right now of Children in the Arts because I spent a lot more time on that the last couple days. I'm forgetting about DAP 1 is kind of easy. I don't remember having a hard time grading that one. But basically, it's like a lot of times people do one part of the question, but not the whole thing. And really, I know it seems like annoying, but if you write the sentence in your own words in a complete sentence, then I know you're not just copying it out of the textbook. I know you actually know what it means. So yeah, if you did just copy and paste a quote from the textbook, then I'm gonna probably need you to elaborate. I didn't take off points usually for that, if it was the right answer, but if you only quoted something and it still didn't address the way the question was worded, then I asked you to do that. So honestly, like, if you do put a quote, I recommend that you explain why you chose that quote and show me that you understand what that quote means. Because a couple times, and not in this class, I think it was more like stuff that, I don't even know if I know what it means unless I write it out. It was something to do with art stuff, and I was like, I'm not even sure that that's right. So it helps us process it, and, you know, I'm not big on busy work, so if I'm asking you to do it, I need to know if you understand it. That's all, okay? So make sure, I don't know, people aren't always in the habit of checking for feedback. One, I was in a classroom and they said, I asked them what makes them feel appreciated, and the student said, when someone, you know, you can tell someone read my work and didn't just put 100 on it. So as I'm grading, if there's something I want to respond to, I am doing those, there's Post-it note things you can do. And so I am asking that you look to see if I responded. But also, sometimes I am providing a link and I'm giving you a week to revise, okay? So we've done DAP. What is DAP? Play and DAP. I do think we need to talk a little bit about the different categories of play and why that's important. And that's important because the work of children is through play. And so if you don't understand how play develops, then it's going to limit how much you can really support it effectively. So a deeper dive into that will help us. We have to do that. And then we should have done infant DAP, and I think toddler DAP is either this week or I had to move it to next week. So John Dewey is not hard as long as you find those 5 questions, you'll be good. Now Maria Montessori, who's queen, but not in our textbook, because probably copyright. I'm telling you, it's probably copyright. She needs to be in there. She's seminal to early childhood education, but she is not. And we need more women too. So I have provided a TED Talk, which is awesome, and then 2 articles. One article I really want you to look at carefully. It's the reading and writing. Montessori does something incredibly interesting when it teaches reading and writing. And it's kind of it sort of flips what a lot of us do in our classrooms. So I do want you to look at it because I think I think if I was going back and teaching pre-K now, I might try to do it the way Montessori does it because, and we'll talk about it more next week. So definitely read carefully the reading and writing article. It's only 2 pages. I actually did bring copies for people. I think, I might only have, oh yes, I do have paper copies if anybody wants them. But it's only 2 pages front, it's 1 page front and back. Really critical, and there's a specific, this one's a little different because it's not in our textbook. So Montessori, we will look at her in the same ways, but we will have less in terms of physical because Montessori she's not in our textbook, so they didn't create that section, right? So for Montessori, on the content map, what I would do, okay, I do the social emotional, And sometimes social emotional can get globed together if it makes it easier for you. I don't think you'll have a lot with physical, but you could, if you said physical was about the physical space, you could make an argument that that's what it is, because Montessori does a lot with the environment, the learning environment, and the teacher is really critical at creating the learning environment, and you really need to have a section for that. So cognitive is going to be huge for Maria Montessori. She is really seminal in how we started to like really make sure that we help support children in learning through their 5 senses. And the article that's about reading and writing really talks about not doing the reading part of it until they have the muscle control in their hands to do the writing. And then when they're learning, when they're able to control their muscles enough to write letters, as they're writing the letters, you can be helping them connect the sounds. Now, I think for students, that makes a lot of sense. For children, like when they're actually writing, that's when they're learning the sounds. But I also believe a lot in that whole language literacy approach where we're reading books and exposing them to all of that. It's just not as explicit. And I think sometimes we get really bogged down in like they should know their letters, they should know the sounds, they should know this before they can even write. And I think it's interesting how Montessori does it, because developmentally, most children's brains supposedly will learn to read most easily like in 1st grade. But this is not what we're doing, is it? So if that's true, then we might be making a lot of children feel unsuccessful as readers way before they're even really developmentally ready. And it's all because like America has this thing like, we're behind, but you're not behind if developmentally your brain can't even do that yet, a lot of kids. So, thanks, Tristan. So I will be interested to hear what you think about the Montessori approach to it and what you see in some of you are in pre-K classrooms. I do know that our center is more, what do I want to say? Sometimes I have more skill oriented than I would have at that age, you know. And that's like, I think if you have a Head Start background or you know, there's just certain backgrounds that lend to that perspective or approach. And I kind of believe organically that if we were reading more books and doing more open-ended activities with children, we'd get to the same place and have creative thinkers and children that feel good about themselves and aren't feeling like they can't do shit, that they shouldn't have to do. But you know, I'm only one person and there's more than one way to do things. And my kids can all read, so they did not have all this stuff, so who knows? All right, so with Montessori, you're gonna wanna have a special section for environment. You wanna make sure you're really talking about what the teacher role is, which may be part of the environment thing. So I did forget that piece, so I would also have a teacher role. You can see where this could get a little messy, but I do feel like there's a lot less mentioned about how she does the physical, at least in what I've provided you. So the TED Talk's amazing. You can get a lot of great information from there. There's a chapter that's like real general that provides some really good stuff about Maria Montessori. But the reading and writing is really kind of compelling in a way. You know, each theorist kind of stands out in its own way. And Maria Montessori's is really about the senses and using the senses to learn about the world. So you want to see that your cognitive is really kind of showing that how they use their senses to process the world. That's definitely going to be a big deal. The other piece that's really interesting, if you are sitting in a classroom with child-sized tables or chairs, you can thank Maria Montessori. She is the person that said, children should not be at regular tables. John Dewey did not say that. Vygotsky didn't say that. Maria Montessori said that children should be able to have adult-like things to learn on, but they should be their size so that they don't get hurt. But she's also like, she'd have them have hammer nails. She would have them do like, okay, that I know can really freak people out with the right supervision. But she would also like have them cutting vegetables for lunch and, you know, they have to clean their environment. You'll see. I think it's interesting. I don't know that, I think the thing that freaks me out about Maria Montessori is a lot of times when you watch the videos, they're very quiet. Kind of like all of you. And I never had a quiet classroom. Jean and I were both loud, and I think we were both Aries or something, I don't remember. And we always had the loudest, most chaotic classroom, right? We were busy, it was messy, it was like fun, whatever. But it was no like, get your tree out, try to use, you know, do a little Play-Doh. No, never. And I don't know that I could pull it off if I wanted to. I'm really tired now, so I'm not like trying to get everybody to talk, but I'm not that thrilled with the amount of talking that's going on. I'm hoping that it's because you just have no questions and that when I go on to grade things, they're all gonna be there. But have you guys heard about Maria Montessori? Other than those, you know, schools you go by and it has a nice Montessori sign. So they have their own schools to prepare people. And it's a very different approach. If it's done the way it's like she meant it to be done. Which I do think that's partially why she's not in our textbook, because they want you to buy the Maria Montessori textbook. I think a lot of places call themselves Montessori, but they're not. They're just using that name. And, you know, that's like a lot of places. You know, schools will say, we want critical thinkers, and then they do all multiple choice questions and stuff, right? So, not everything is real Montessori, but you can probably get that from the TED Talk. Hopefully you'll enjoy the different modalities you get to use other than your textbook, but it is not as, for all of the, you know, lecturing, I've been like, you just have to do it the same way each time. This one's a little different. But she's Maria, so we gotta do her. I really think the other thing that's wrong with that textbook is just not enough women. I think Louise Durban Sparks is the only woman in that textbook. That's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, as you're doing these, and the hardest thing about the Dewey quiz, by the way, is that I believe the last question asks you to kind of compare Dewey. Nope, I moved it to Maria. So you are going to compare Dewey to Maria Montessori on that quiz. So finish Dewey. Is there anything that you think of when you, okay, let's think about it. We've done Piaget. What do you think about when you think of Piaget? I know what I think about.
Organized nicely.
It's organized. We have someone who likes the stage theorist because it's got a nice chart. It is organized. It's laid out. It's easy. What about, then we did Vygotsky, right? What about him?
He's very into like how society and environment like affects like how you
I like the little ZPD, right? Which I think is what you're talking about. Like, he does like, he thinks all learning is social and interactive, and that the best way for teachers to teach is in these groups, and then to meet children where they are, and then take them further. That we don't have to be limited by the chart that Piaget has. Now Dewey, do you like Dewey's questions, Danny? Like Danny, Dewey doesn't have a chart, but Dewey has the 5 questions.
Fair.
But
It works.
it's okay. It's easy in that sense. Well, I like to hear who people's favorite is. My favorite still, after decades, is Vygotsky. But I have to say my tendency is like, we gotta have a woman in there. My other favorite is Vivian Paley, who we will only sort of like introduce ourselves to a little bit because we do a book of hers in curriculum, and we do a book in Children in the Arts. So we'll just do a tiny bit about Vivian Paley. But Vivian Paley is really, she's also big with literacy, and that's my thing, storytelling and literacy, so. One of the things you should be thinking about as you're looking at these is which ones do you really think match the way you would want to teach, because that's part of the project. I would definitely be trying to think if you see any elements of their approaches in the classrooms that you're working in, because that would be an easy part of your project too, to worry about. I mean, my least favorite, honestly, are Piaget and Erikson, but they're the most taught about just forever. And people like the stages, I think. And they do help, like, put everything in a certain perspective. All right, so we're gonna see where we end up for Tuesday, but hoping that, I think the way I did it is only the content map is due this week, and then the quiz will be due, something we'll work on next week. Because I did know some people still haven't finished with Dewey, and I missed Tuesday and never opened the week off. So the other piece of that is the toddlers, if that's in there. So a content map and then the toddler environment out of DAP are what I left for this week. And we really don't want to keep putting that off because we have a lot of age groups to get through. And so next week, I do have a article, I might just hand it out next week. It's on literacy I want to kind of tie up infants and toddlers, but I would like some of our quiet people, all of our quiet people, to try to do a finger play or a nursery rhyme. Yep. Something that's appropriate for infants and toddlers. So be thinking about that. And if you aren't gonna come in person, you'll be recording it. But it would be fun if other people other than me spoke, but we'll deal with that next week. I hope everybody that isn't feeling well starts to feel better. And if you have any questions, please stay after and talk to me. Okay. So, I wasn't talking about you, weekly report.
Oh, I know, I just wanted to.
It's good to get caught up.
Yeah.
Hayden, did you are you gonna be doing some replacement? Do you know where the area is?
Oh, someone.
Okay, so I won't be doing some. Well, first of all, you just go with me or that's what we're talking about. So we haven't even had a conversation. So even if you are gonna use the place you're at, you still need to figure out how you're going to meet the requirements